Hey Joanna, I'm going to do this training on how to uh, read sales contracts and specifically how to determine what the concessions are. So that is another one that we had talked about. Um, so I'm going to do the same thing I did with the last one, the last video that I did where I've got this test report open and I'm just going to be specifically doing this contract section here. And I'm going to go through 2, 3, 4. I've picked out 5 different reports to go through just to give you some different examples. 4 of them are open orders right now that you've either just recently done or you're about to do. And so I guess I'm just going to get started on this first one. I'm going to go into this first one. This is a purchase on Braywick. And I'm going to just open up the sales contract. So this is a pretty standard contract. It's a Board of Realtors contract. It's used, I don't know, maybe 80, 90% of the time. The rest of the time there's builder contracts used and then other just individual contracts that people come up with. So, but this is a pretty standard one. There's not any addendums or anything on this one. It's just a standard. It's like a, normally they're 5 to 7 or 8 pages long. So I've already showed you this before, so some of this is just going to be repeat, but I just wanted to emphasize a couple of things. So paragraph number 1 in this typical contract has the purchase price. Okay, so in this one, the total purchase price shall be $510,000. So that's the first thing we're going to put in here. The contract price is $510,000. Oops, I forgot a 0. Okay, we do have to say did because anytime there's a purchase, we have to review the contract. And then you already know how to determine the number of pages reviewed. So see, that was 5. This one is 6 pages long. Up there, I'm just getting that from there. We could look at each of the pages. It is important to scan them. So, but I would still just include whatever is here. So this is page 1, page 2, page 3. There's some type there that we're going to need to come back and look at. Page 4, that's the signature page. Page 5 is just an agent sheet. And page 6 is a copy of the earnest money check that's upside down. That's kind of unusual. So that's what the 6 pages are. So there's 6 pages. 6 pages provided and reviewed. It appears typical with no unusual concessions. Okay, we've got the contract price. Now we need the date of the contract. So this is where we go down here and we're looking at the most recent date that this thing was signed. In this case, there's only one set of signatures for the sellers and one set of signatures for the buyers. The way that we know that is down here, the seller, when a buyer makes an offer, they put the offer in and they sign it the day that they send it over. So the buyers made this offer on 5/28. And then the sellers have 3 options. They can accept the offer and not make any changes to it. They can reject the offer and make no counter offer, or they can counter the offer. If they counter the offer, one of 2 things can happen. They could come up and amend the sales price up here by literally like scratching through this and writing a different price and then initialing it. Or they can attach a counter offer. It's a whole separate page and it says counter offer. And they're supposed to say separate counter offer form is attached, yes or no. And if it's countered and no, you're looking for a change on this page or on this form. I'm sorry, the first page of this same document. And if there's a counter offer form attached, yes, then you're looking for a completely separate page with a different sales price or something. Either way, to get the date, you're looking for the most recent date, and it looks like that's 528, 527, 527. I can't even read this, but I believe it's 527, 528. So we're going to go with 528. It's the most recent date that I see. Date of contract is 05/28/2017. The next thing that we have to address is the property seller the owner of public record? I believe I've already shown you this. This might just be repeat, but what you're doing is you're going to match the seller name, the undersigned seller, Thomas and Jill Nguyen, to the current tax record or deed. Thomas and Jill Nguyen. So that would be yes. And then the source is Madison County. Okay. And then right here, is there any financial assistance to be paid? This is the part that you had questions about, was not necessarily being confident in determining the financial concessions. So again, this is a pretty standard contract. So this financial concessions, they'll be in a paragraph in this one. In this case, it's titled settlement charges. It's the second one. In other contracts, it might be called closing costs or closing, something like that. But you're just looking for something to the effect of the seller agrees to contribute up to, in this case, it's $6,000 towards purchaser's total settlement charges. So, and there was no amendments to this contract. So this is going to be yes. Is there any financial assistance to be paid? Yes. The amount is $6,000, and it's going to be going to closing costs. And that's it for that contract. Again, that was a pretty simple, basic one. I'm going to delete all of this so that we can start over and go through about four more examples, and we'll see what we run into. All right, we'll close those. The next one we're going to go over is on Rainbow. This is one of those unusual contracts. We don't see one every day. I'm also going to pull up the tags because I know we're going to need to look at that. Oops. So this one, it's May 29th. It's one page long. On May 29th. It was signed on the 30th, though. So we're going to use one page. The 30th is the date. See, this is just literally a letter that they wrote where everybody signed it. I did review the contract. It's a typical contract. One page. And I'm just going to change this so that it reads correctly. Was provided and reviewed. It appears typical with no unusual concessions disclosed. We said the date was 5/30. So now we need to get the price and the owner of record. So according to this, the price is going to be $145,000. I read through this earlier. It literally just says on May 29th, the buyer and these sellers. The buyer agreed to purchase a property from these sellers. Property is a single-family residence with detached two-car garage located at, then it gives the address, for the sum of $145,000. So that's our price. The seller has agreed to pay up to 3% of the closing costs for the buyer. So the 3% is based on this price here. So we've got the date, okay, we've got the price, $145,000 and 3%. So that's what we're going to put in here. 145,000. We already had the date. Is there any? Yes, it's 3%. So we're just going to take 145,000 times 0.03. That's 443.50. And same thing, seller paying closing costs. Okay, and then is the property seller the owner of public record? I'm just going to do a quick check. It says the seller are Bobby and Marie Adams, and this says the owners are Bobby and Marie Adams. So you can go back here and say yes, and then Madison County, because that's where that sheet was from. Okay, so that's that one. That was it was a different contract. It's not your typical one. You just kind of have to read through that one. It's still pretty simple and straightforward, though. There's not a lot of changes or a lot of things you have to look through. So they'll get more difficult as we go through here. Okay, next one we're going to do is on Amber. Amber. Here we go. And again, I'm just going to close out of those, open up the sales contract as well as the tax. Okay, so the reason that I opened this one was because it does have a counteroffer. You can see that there at the top. This counteroffer page, a lot of times I have been seeing it as the first page, but occasionally it is showing up at the end or buried in the middle somewhere. So in this case, we have 6 pages, and we're looking for, so in this case, the purchase price shall be $153. That's what was offered. And you can see they scratched that out, wrote 157, and it says see counter. And then we're going to go ahead and look down here. Counters, there's a separate counter offer form. And that was that first page. So that first page says the purchase price shall be $157,000. That's what was changed. So we've got 6 pages. I did. Oh, we've also do have to choose this, but I think you already know how to do that. It's arm's length unless the buyer and seller are related or have some working relationship. So we're just going to do 6 pages were provided and reviewed. It appears typical with no unusual concessions. The price was $157 according to the counteroffer. The date is, and then we're looking for signature dates on this page, 5/9/59/59. Those all say 5/9. So that's the date we're going to use. Is the property seller the owner of record? The seller was Casey and Matthew Aston, and the owners are Casey and Matthew Aston, so that would be yes. Data source again is Madison County. Is there any financial assistance to be paid by any party on behalf of the borrower? I didn't see anything about closing costs on the counteroffer. So whatever is in the main contract is going to be what's valid. So this contract shows, it's the second paragraph. The seller agrees to contribute up to $6,000. So that's the price we're going to put in there for concessions. So yes, $6,000, and then closing costs. So now that one's done. So that was still pretty straightforward, but it did have that counteroffer page that I know that you have not necessarily been referring to because I had not showed it to you before. All right, so the next one is going to be another just different example, kind kind of like that one page, but this is, it's more than one page, but it's still not your typical realtor contract. It's on Yarborough. So let's open up that contract and then the tax. Okay, so this one is, again, it's also 6 pages long, but see, this is not your typical Board of Realtors contract. So you're just going to have to read through it. So it doesn't even list a date here in June. It does list the James Bailey as the seller and Anita Jo Weaver as the buyer, so we can check that right now. Well, that's weird. James Bailey was the seller, so we're looking for Bailey to own it. This right here says Geraldine Powers is the owner. However, this thing changed. Looks like maybe he died. So James Bailey is the seller. We're looking for him to own it. Geraldine Powers. Okay, that's who says it's owned it right now, but it's care of James Bailey. So here's the deed. So grantor grantee is James Bailey. So they're just behind. They haven't changed this yet. But as of January 31st, James Bailey owned this property. So he does own it. So we can say yes to that. So there's 6 pages and he does own it. So I'm just going to go ahead and put those 2 pieces in here. I did analyze it. There's 6 pages. Change that 5 to a 6. I assume it's arm's length. And then is the, yes. And then in this one, I'm going to do Limestone County because we got that from Limestone County. Okay, now I need the price and the date and the concessions. Okay. So now I'm just going to continue reading it. Your personal property. That says $10. Purchase price and method of payment. Seller shall sell at a price of $86,250. But I'm going to finish going through this to make sure there's not a different price somewhere else. And then closing costs. It doesn't look like, I mean, this mentions different. It says, as part of this agreement, an owner's title, insurance policy, and binder will be provided to the buyer at closing. All charges for title examination, the premium for the issuance to buyer of the owner's policy of title insurance for the property, and the title binder fee shall be paid by the buyer, not the seller. Buyer's and seller's costs, in addition to the title costs, the buyer will pay for expenses incurred in the preparation of closing documents, any permissible loan charges, the payment of all recording fees. So the buyer is paying everything in this one. Seller is solely responsible for the expense of deed and seller's attorney's fees. But basically, what we're looking for closing costs or seller concessions is the seller paying for anything that the buyer should normally pay for? And it doesn't look like that's the case in this one. So that's talking about the date that's going to close. So I'm just looking at the paragraphs here to see what I need. All of this is just legal stuff. Okay, so there's nothing about a price change. So that price is the final price. I think it was $86,250, and there's no closing costs. $86,250. Okay, so $86,250. I didn't even look at the date, but there's no closing costs. So when you check the no button, that just goes, and it just goes to zero, and you don't have to put anything. So now I just need to check the date, and that should be towards the end. Let's see, date of execution 5/31/17. Okay. So that was just another example of, kind of your not standard sales contract that you have to review. And it's just a matter of reading it and looking for the information that we actually need to report. Okay, so I'm going to clear this out one more time, and I've got one more to go through. This is going to be a builder one. And it's pretty long. So this one, I actually already have this report open. We're going to go through the one on Trailing Creek that we just recently did. So this one, see, this is one of the fun, it's 38 pages long. So the builder contracts typically consist of, and they're never in any same order, but they usually have a copy of the floor plan. They sometimes have copies of the elevation plans. They usually have a main contract, and then they have all of these addendum and option sheets is what they consist of. And like I said, they're never in any kind of stated order. So you literally just have to look through the whole, see, this is the elevation, the roof line, the floor plan. That's the electrical plan. This is the main body that I was talking about. So see, it's buried right in the middle, 16th out of 38 pages. This gives the original purchase price, but there's 90% of the time you're not looking for the price in the body of a builder contract. You've got to look at all the addendums, and basically we're looking for the most recently dated addendum, and it's usually got the highest sales price on it. So that one says $297,410, and then we'll come back to the closing costs, but it's on page 17. So all of this is just standard legal stuff. Goes over what the buyer agrees to do, what the seller agrees to do. But we really just need the final sales price, selling concessions, and then like options and amenities. This is all just the main body of the contract still. And then here we go. This is a list of addendums. That should be included. Signed 2/1. This is just contact information sheet. Okay, this might be of importance if the builder A lot of times builders will offer concessions if the buyer uses a preferred lender. So these would be the preferred lenders, these banks here. We'll get to the seller concessions in a minute, though. I'm just going to be looking for the sales price right now. This is showing they put up a deposit. Earnest money is like a deposit. That's a copy of the check. That's saying the real estate agent gets a commission. This is a copy of the lot. And this is a copy of everything that they include in every house in that neighborhood. This is just how they finish the houses and the rooms and everything. I have to look at all that closer later, but when you're filling out the contract section, you don't really need all of that. Okay, so it looks like all the option things were at the front. So we're going to go back through the front. Okay. So see, this is just a price adjustment, $828, and then it gives a summary. So see that first price that we saw was like $297, and now it says the total sale price is $314,788, and that is as of May 1st. $314,788. So we're going to see if there's any addendums dated after that. This is dated 3/8, so that's before that. And see, the sales price is lower. So this is still March 1st, so that's still before. See, they just did a lot of changes during the construction. That's what happens. That's why these are so confusing. This is still dated March 1st and 3/13/610. So it must have done a lot of changes on that one day or something. I don't know. This is where all the big stuff got put in, I can tell, just because it's a little longer. That was the total sale price. 2/1. And then we get to the elevation and everything. So that first page looks like it was the, yep, okay. So we're looking for this. $314,788 on 5/1/17. So I did, and it was 38 pages long. 38 pages were provided and reviewed. It appears typical. No unusual concessions. I did. Okay, and it was, oh my goodness, I forgot. $314,788. And it was on 5/1/2017. Property seller, the owner of record, yes. It was Madison County. Okay, and then this one is there any financial concessions or financial assistance? Okay, now we're going to go back and look at that one section in the main. It was page 17. Closing costs. See, this is what I was talking about. If purchaser obtains financing through a Jeff Benton Homes approved lender, see attached list, closing costs will be paid by Jeff Benton Homes. Okay. Closing costs do not include prepaid items and escrow deposit. Purchaser acknowledges closing costs will be, okay. Da, 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 da. I'm just reading through all of this legal jargon. So it's basically saying that And it doesn't give a percentage here. It doesn't say like up to 1.75%, like I see on, I think Stone Ridge does that. But you do, the balance of final. Okay. Okay. So sometimes it'll say if they use a different lender, they'll pay up to like 1% or 0.5%, or something like this. But this says that if they use a preferred lender, Jeff Benton is going to pay all the closing costs except for prepaids and escrows. So that's what we're going to say. And now we need to see who the lender is. So this was done for First Bank. And I believe that First Bank was on that list. So long. First Bank, they're the first one on that list. So these are going to be paid by, okay, yes, there is. And in this case, it's unknown. We don't know the amount. They didn't give it out as a percentage and they didn't give it as a dollar amount. So we say there is financial assistance amount that is unknown per contract. Seller will pay for 100 or pay for all closing costs with the exception of prepaids and escrow deposit. The amount is unknown. That's it. So if it gives a percentage, you just have to multiply the sales price. Make sure you have the correct sales price by that percentage and put that number in there. If it's unknown, this is how you would report it. And I hope that helps going over all of those. I think it covers pretty much every scenario, but just let me know if anything comes up that's not covered and you have questions. All right, thanks.